Welcome to WDW Cupcakes. I'm Tim Foster, and before we start, I wanted to talk about my favorite candy. And dare I say, it's the perfect candy. That would be Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, and more specifically, the white chocolate Christmas tree that comes out during the holidays. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to create your own twist on this classic candy, using peanut butter fudge that we're going to dip in white and milk chocolate. Now, there's a lot of fudge recipes out there. Some are easy, some are hard. For this treat, I'll be using a classic recipe that my mother taught me, which is a little tricky, but not that difficult to make, once you learn a couple little tricks. For this recipe, you're going to need 2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of milk, a half a stick of butter, 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract, and lots of peanut butter. You can't have too much peanut butter. You'll also need some white chocolate and milk chocolate wafers, and some sprinkles or other decorations. Oh, and most importantly of all, you'll need a Mickey Mouse cookie cutter. Before we get started, make sure to thoroughly butter your dish, since we're going to want that fudge to come out of that dish nice and clean. And now to make the fudge. To begin, pour the milk and sugar into a large saucepan and stir them until they're thoroughly combined and the sugar is dissolved. Place this over a medium heat candy thermometer at the ready, and gently stir the mixture as it heats up. You're going to be cooking this for about 20 minutes or so while we're waiting, let's talk about what's actually going on at the molecular level, and more importantly, unravel the mystery of what exactly went wrong if you ended up with peanut butter soup, which has happened to me many times in the past. So basically, the key for making the perfect candy comes down to 2 things: temperature and sugar crystals, or the lack thereof. The dry sugar we're familiar with is actually made up of sugar crystals, which are sucrose molecules that are arranged in an orderly fashion. In fact, if you look closely at some sugar grains, you'll see that they're shaped like little cubes. For our purposes, I'll be using candy pearls to represent the molecules, but you get the idea. And yes, the blue pearls represent the milk, but with the release of Rise of Skywalker, we thought we'd go with the blue milk. Anyway, when we combine the sugar and milk, we're actually breaking down the crystals into individual sucrose molecules, like this. With me so far? Great. So, there are 2 critical parts to candy making: temperature and crystal formation. As we heat the sugar-milk mixture, and just to be clear, all of this holds true for water or any other liquid you might be using, the milk is slowly boiling away. Now, remember when we started, we had 2 cups of sugar and 1 cup of milk, meaning that the solution was roughly 67% sugar. But as we boil the milk away, that concentration of sugar rises. How much? Well, that's the first important step in candy making: the temperature. The higher the temperature, the more concentrated the solution, and different candies are formed at different temperatures, which are defined by descriptive names such as hard crack, soft crack, and hardball. Hard crack is used for lollipops, while soft crack is used for toffee and nougats. The stage we're aiming for is the softball stage, which equates to about 240 degrees, and at this temperature, the sugar concentration has risen to 85%, like this. Now at this point, you could rely on your thermometer, but sometimes that thermometer can be misleading. For example, you might have it touching the pot, which could give you a slightly incorrect reading. The best way to tell if your mixture has reached the right temperature is with the cold water test. Now to do this, you're going to take a small spoonful of the mixture and drop it in a dish of cold water. For the softball stage, you're looking for that solution to form a soft, flexible ball that you can roll around a bit. If the solution falls apart in the water, you're not quite there yet. And that is the mystery behind all of those bowls of peanut butter soup I had made in my younger days. I hadn't heated the mixture to the proper temperature. And this brings us to the second critical factor in candy making: sugar crystals. So in the heated mixture we have now, the sugar is broken down into individual molecules, and they desperately want to reform into crystals. Since at this point the molecules are moving around so fast by virtue of them being super hot, they don't have the chance to settle down, cozy up, and form crystals. But as the solution cools, those molecules are just itching to get back together. Now, if you heated the mixture all the way up to the hard crack stage, which is 300 degrees, and you let that pot sit perfectly still and allow the mixture to cool, those crystals won't form, and that's how you make lollipops. But if you stir the mixture even a little bit, you'll get all those molecules excited and they'll start forming crystals all over the place. Now, depending on the type of candy you're making, crystal formation can be good or bad. If you're making a hard candy like lollipops, you don't want crystals to form. You want that solution to cool down so it looks like glass. But for fudge, you want lots of crystals. Zillions of crystals. That's what gives fudge its distinctive texture. So, how do we get those crystals to form? We stir. And stir. And stir. Stirring will get all those molecules bumping into each other so they can combine to form sugary crystals. First, though, you're going to want that mixture to cool down a little bit. Then add your butter, vanilla, and peanut butter. Then, grab that spoon and start to stir. This will take several minutes, so be patient. What we're basically doing is letting that mixture cool while encouraging the formation of lots and lots of crystals. When the fudge starts to set, you're going to pour it into your dish. Now, here's a good tip to tell when you're at that point. Stop stirring briefly and tilt the pot toward you. If the surface starts to crackle, you're good to go. No crackle? Just keep stirring. If the fudge doesn't set up properly, this is also how you can get peanut butter soup. If that happens though, don't worry. Just put the mixture back on your burner, reheat it a bit, and stir until the fudge sets. Now once your fudge is poured, set it aside and let it cool. Once it's nice and cool, gently invert the pan and release the fudge onto a piece of parchment paper. This is why it was so important to thoroughly butter that pan. Now, take your Mickey Mouse cookie cutter and carefully cut out your candy pieces. Now you're going to end up with a lot of little bits when you're done, but hey, that's your reward for a job well done. Now it's time to dip our pieces in chocolate. For this step, I'm going to use chocolate wafers, and you can actually microwave these if you like, and in fact they're actually made for that, but I'm going to use a double boiler so I can better control the consistency of the chocolate. To do this, heat some water in a saucepan until it's simmering, then place another saucepan on top of that, being careful not to have the top pan come in contact with the water. Stir your chocolate wafers until they reach a nice smooth consistency. Then gently drop a piece of fudge into the chocolate and use a fork to carefully cover the fudge. When it's completely covered, give the fork a few gentle taps on the side of the pan to get rid of that excess chocolate. Then slide the bottom of the fork along the side of the pan to get rid of that last bit of extra chocolate. And use a knife to gently place the covered candy on a clean piece of parchment. And then we're going to repeat this process, but this time we're going to use white chocolate wafers. At this point, you can top your candy off with colorful sprinkles or other decorations. Now, all you have to do is let them cool and voila! Mickey Mouse peanut butter fudge cups. We hope you enjoyed this episode of WDW Cupcakes and perhaps learned a little bit about the science of cooking too. We'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.